Hey world literature students, today we're going to be talking about how to wrap up quarter one. And specifically we're going to be talking about what you should be doing with those Taming of the Shrew essays that you got back with teacher feedback and how to use today's times wisely so that not only do you finish up your essays, but you're also ready to start Unit 2. So here are our goals. We're going to focus on 5 common mistakes that we saw across many essays. We're going to talk about how to decipher the editing and revision marks that you see all over your paper. And then after that, you're going to be given some time so that you can work on fixing those essays. And last but not least, you're also going to be given some time to get ready to start a new unit tomorrow, right? Very exciting. Let's get started. First common writing mistake has to do with citations. So let me give you an example. Let's say you got a quotation from Act 2, Scene 1, lines 74 to 76. That citation, to give credit to where you got it from the book, should become something that looks like this, right? It's in parentheses. There are all these numbers, traditional and Roman numeral, and then there's some punctuation. So let's talk about each section. The first set of numbers that you see there, those refer to the act, right? So Act 2 becomes the Roman numeral, capital Roman numeral 2. All you do to get that is the capital I on your keyboard. So here's a key of how what the numbers become. A 1 becomes a capital I. 2, 2 capital I's. 3, 3 capital I's. 4, capital I and a capital V, and a 5 is simply a capital V. The second Roman numeral you see there refers to the scene. So this came from Scene 1. So similarly, the scenes also become Roman numerals. The only difference is that they are lowercase. So instead of a capital I, you have lowercase i's. Instead of capital V's, you have lowercase v's. Finally, the numbers at the end. Those numbers refer to the line numbers. Remember we said that the quotation came from line 74 to 76. So there you go. There are the numbers. Last 2 things to keep in mind. The punctuation that you see here. So there is punctuation before and after the citation. Before the citation, you have the closed punctuation marks. And after the citation, you have a period. Always, always do not put the period before. It goes after. Also notice the spacing. There's a space here between the end of the quotation mark and the side of the citation. There is, however, no space between the end of the citation and the period at the end. Please keep those things in mind. Second common writing mistake has to do with contractions. Here is just an example of some contractions that we saw across your papers. Now, this is not a comprehensive list. This does not include every contraction that people use, but you'll get the idea. Isn't, 2 words, is not. There, they are. Doesn't, does not. It's, it is, his, he is. Right? Just make sure that you separate them out. Contractions, while not grammatically incorrect, are considered unprofessional in academic writing. You want to avoid them. Common mistake number 3 is a little heavier. It has to do with the I sections, and it has to do with when the I section includes a rephrasing of the quotation. You are not to rephrase the quotation in the I section, because if you're doing this, then you're simply repeating yourself, and that gets boring. Right? I don't want to hear what the quotation is saying in your own words before I read the quotation from the actual text. It's the same thing twice. Let me give you an example so you know what I'm talking about. Here's an example I section that somebody wrote. In the first scene of the play, Catherine threatened to beat Hortensio with a 3-legged stool and paint his face with blood. Completely and totally accurate. But then the E section right after said, Catherine said, I faith, sir, you shall never need to fear. I wist it not halfway to her heart. But if it were, doubt no her care should be to comb your noodle with a 3-legged stool and paint your face and use you like a fool. Right? This stuff that's already been said in the I section is suddenly already again said in the E section. That's repetitive. The I section's purpose is to give context for this. So to summarize everything that happened in this scene up until when this quotation appeared. Not to actually tell me what the quotation is about to say. Okay. Another one has to do with the D section. And the issue that we're having with the D sections is that sometimes your D sections are shorter than the E section. And that should never happen. The golden rule for D sections is that they should be at least twice as long as the selected quotation, at least twice as long as the E section. right? At least twice as long. Maybe longer, but at least twice as long. Final common writing mistake is again with the D section. When the D section doesn't mention the quotation in the E section, that's a huge problem. You never want the reader to ask, why is the quotation even there? If you're not going to talk about it in the D section, then why do you have it? Let me give you an example. Here's that example E section that we saw earlier where Catherine is threatening Hortensio. And here's what the writer wrote about that. Catherine is rude to Hortensio, which shows that men do not like women who stand up for themselves and would rather be with someone like Bianca. So, first of all, while this is analysis, this is the writer forming some sort of opinion, it is not, as you can tell really easily, as long as the E section. Already we have some issues. So what you should be thinking about as a writer is, how does this quotation help this argument? Which in reality is a pretty good argument, but right now doesn't have the evidence behind it. So let me give you an example of how to make sure you never have claims without evidence. So that quotation that you saw, how does it show Catherine being rude? Well, she's threatening violence. And you should say that in your D section. You should say, Catherine is being rude because she threatens Hortensio with violence. And that violence is specifically using a stool to hit him upside the head. How does the quotation show Catherine is standing up for herself? With the beginning part of that quotation, she's telling Hortensio he never needs to fear, right? If you remember, let's see, we can go back real quick. If you see, I fade her, you shall never need to fear. Notice the direct connection back to the quotation. She tells Hortensio he never needs to fear. This is referring to a worry he expressed in the previous line to have to court Catherine. Once you add that to the D section suddenly is the length it should be, and the conclusions that no one would want to be with Catherine make much more sense because you've explained it. All right? That brings us to other editing marks, because you're going to see a lot of writing all over your paper, so we want to make sure you know what that means. Sometimes you'll see SP on top of some words. That simply means the words that is underneath the SP is spelled incorrectly. You need to go back and fix that. Then there is a series of lines that you'll see. Sometimes that line goes over a word or over a punctuation mark. That means get rid of that word or punctuation mark. They're not needed. And pay attention, because sometimes on top we suggest other phrases or punctuation marks. Sometimes that line comes in between two words. That just means put a space between those two words. And sometimes the line just goes over a letter, like this. That means that letter should not be capitalized. When you see three lines underneath a letter, that means the opposite. Capitalize the letter. Sometimes you'll see two words that you've spaced out connected by semicircles. That means those two words should be paired as one. Other times you'll see either a question mark or AWK on top of a word or phrase. That means you need to go back and proofread because you're using confusing phrasing or word choice. Other times you'll see kind of like this incomplete triangle with a phrase or word or punctuation mark on top. That means insert whatever we're telling you to insert. And similarly, sometimes you'll see that we've added commas or periods, and to make sure your eye catches them, we'll circle those punctuation marks, so all you have to do is insert them. I hope this has been helpful. I just now want to take a couple more minutes and talk to you about what to do once you are done with the time that you've used to fix your essays. There are a couple of things that you need to do to be ready to hit the ground running tomorrow. First, you need to empty out your binder. Not completely. You need to keep your syllabus. You're going to need that all year. And your dividers. You don't want to be making dividers every quarter. You can toss out the table of contents, but keep the dividers. And any drafts of your essay. And that should say yours. I apologize for the typo there. So you want to keep anything that has teacher feedback on it. All of those things we're going to be looking at the end of the year to see your progress as a writer, so you want to have evidence. Plus, you'll probably need them for your student conference. And anything else you find particularly useful or you're particularly proud of, you should also keep. Just put it in one of the pockets of the binder so it doesn't get in the way of everything else. You also, if you haven't done so already, want to turn in your Taming of the Shrew books. Please take out your Post-its before you do this. Please be careful in the way you take out your Post-its. You don't want to take out a page of the book along with the Post-it. And just leave the books on top of our desk or give them to the substitute or whoever's around in the room. You just want to make sure that they're easy for us to find. And that's it. Now you need to get to work. So first of all, finish your essays. A final version is due by 9 a.m. tomorrow, Tuesday, October 23rd. They should be emailed to your English teacher. The subject of the email should say final Shrew essay, and you need to attach the essay. Grades are due very soon, so if you don't turn in a final version, then there's nothing that we can do to grade them. And then you also need to get ready for the new unit by cleaning out your binders and turning in your books. It will be assumed tomorrow that you have done that. All right, good luck, have a good day, and finish up those essays.